Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Gopi Jana Bharava Girvaridari Gopi Jana Bharava Girvaridari Yasodanandana Brajajanharanjana Yasodanandana Brajajanharanjana Yamuna Chiravanachari Yamuna Chiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Gopi Jana Bharava Girvaridari Gopi Jana Bharava Girvaridari Yashodanandana Brajajanharanjana Yasodanandana Brajajanharanjana Yamuna Chiravanachari Yamuna Chiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Jagatacharya Astu Tadasada Shri Shriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai Vaishnav Sangha Ki Jai Gaura Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories to the sum devotees. All glories, Shri Shri Guru and Gananga. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, this seems to be Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita Greatest Hits Week. So I chose my favorite. So we're reading 1, 2, 6, and probably many of you in the room have given class on this verse maybe many times. So please, comparisons, they say, ruin the enemy of joy. So please don't compare your previous classes to whatever I'm going to say. It may take away whatever joy you may experience by hearing Prabhupada's purport and my attempts to expand upon that. Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhoksajai ahaituki apratihata ayatma suprasidati Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhoksajai Ahaituki apratihita Yayatma suprasiddhati Savaipum samparo dharmo Yato bhakti rahoksaje Ahaituki apratihata Yayatma suprasiddhati
Sambaro dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yatma suprasidati Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje bhaktaki apratihata ayatma suprasidati
Vaishnavis?
Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata ayatma suprasidati Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata ayatma suprasidati Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata ayatma suprasidati Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhokshaje ahaituki apratihata ayatma suprasidati
We're meaning sa, that, vai, certainly, pumsam, for mankind, para, sublime, dharma, occupation, yata, by which, bhakti, devotional service, adhokshaje, unto the transcendence, ahaituki, causeless, apratihata, unbroken, yaya, by which, atma, the self, Suprasidati. Completely satisfied. See, this is real pressure. I got a professor on one side and someone I've known as a teenager for the 10 years. And Mahaprabhu, who, Mosa with all of his beautiful artistry. I'm surrounded here, but Krishna help. Please help. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Such a beautiful verse. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So please repeat. The supreme occupation, Dharma, for all humanity, is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Purport. In this statement, Sri Sutta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that the fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the Pavriti Marg, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called the Nivriti Marg, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, and the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just the futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary cessation of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation, or abnegation for ultimate good, is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Jai Shri Radhadesh. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, that is, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of the devotional service of the Lord, without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive action, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. We have purposefully denoted dharma as occupation, because the root meaning of the word dharma is, quote, that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity, or eternal form amongst all other living beings, or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and it is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. Read that again. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence, that will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. Om Gyanantamiyanda Shajanan Anjana Shalakaya Chakshu Manitamina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanyamaro Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapanantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So my thanks to the organizers for allowing me to be here and allowing me to speak a little bit on this. The last 3 days of verses and class has been very inspiring. Garuda Prabhu, Rukmini, and Shonaka Rishi. So it's a pleasure to be here and participate in this hearing of transcendental knowledge. Also, just appreciate coming to Radhadesh. I don't know how many times I've been here, but enough that it has a special place in my heart. And I was just thinking this morning, and I cannot say this about every ISKCON temple, but this is one place that actually makes me proud to be a member of the Hare Krishna movement. And I think I am comfortable, anybody I meet anywhere in the world, to say, oh, you're going to go to Belgium, you should come to see our temple in Radhadesh. Other cities I sometimes meet people, I say, oh, you live there. Well, you know, there's a temple about 100 miles away. And, you know, we all pray that eventually they will also manifest the beautiful qualities of Prabhupada's movement, his teachings, and his standards, but they don't all have that yet. So it increases my personal faith in the movement, actually coming here and seeing what devotees can accomplish when we apply our skills in a cooperative way. So thank you for that, those of you that are here that maintain this community, and my thanks to all of the devotees. I was thinking this morning, and we see it now. His Holiness Bhakti Maharaj passed away a few years ago, Sridhar Maharaj a few years ago, Tamal Krishna Maharaj a few years ago, now Gopal Krishna Maharaj. So,
why are you looking at me?
Because I thought I would contrast to someone who stays there, stays for a long time, But you know, as I was thinking, like in kirtan or something, and you look around the room, we don't know how long everybody's going to be here. You know, we kind of, maybe I'm saying this as a reflection of my getting old. It's probably definitely more of a factor now. But we don't know. We very often take for granted the association of devotees and particular devotees, but we really don't know how long we're going to have an opportunity to be with different devotees. So I just suggest we should all make an effort to try to appreciate the days, the moments, the time we have with the devotees that we have a chance to associate with. Just like we know a few years ago, this communications group used to meet every year, and then COVID came, and boom, we stopped for 2 years, 3 years, 3 years. And I remember every year I say, Mahaprabhu, please, we need to do it. He say, Anuttama, Belgium is closed down. I said, but Mahaprabhu, we have to do it. We have to meet. But Prabhu, like that. So somehow, by Krishna's grace, over 3 years, we're able to meet again. But we can't take for granted that we will always be able to meet again, or that we'll always see those people that we're with. And it's a fact that in material consciousness especially, sometimes people, they don't appreciate each other's association. And then somebody dies, and then all of a sudden they're the most popular person in the world. Everybody's crying, but when they were there, they just complained with each other. You know, and then they die, and I've lost the opportunity. So we should make sure we take advantage. Of course, we're spiritual beings, we have spiritual associations, so ultimately it's eternal in some form or the other, but while we're in this world, we should appreciate the time we have. We know Vapu is not permanent, and without devotees, we really would be lost. And it's a fact too, we all know, sometimes it's painful. Just like this morning, Prabhu, who I have so much respect for, and he's so kind and so generous, he came up to me during Mangal Artik, while I was trying to think about Krishna, and said, you didn't turn in your verse yet. I said, who am I supposed to give it to? I thought I was supposed to give it to the Prabhupada. He said, no, you should have given it a few days ago. And he continued to harass me throughout the morning. But I was thinking, actually, we're so fortunate. It's a fact. I was thinking, it's a fact. Sometimes association with devotees is a little painful, and I'm not looking at you, Guru Prabhu. Sometimes, sometimes it's a little painful because, those we associate with, they're not always so pure. Some of these people step on our toes, or they say something unkind, or they don't do something that manifests the highest level of Krishna consciousness, or sometimes it's just we need to, be chastised because we're not so pure, we need to be corrected. And that is a little painful, but we keep in mind that actually these things are good for me, just like that wonderful story Prabhupada with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, where the man leaned over to whisper into Abai Baba's ear, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati chastised them both. And he said to our Prabhupada, he said, so I'm paraphrasing, so you're so advanced, you want to sit up here now and give class? And he said to the other man, he said, do you think by your 100 rupee donation you purchased me? And Prabhupada said he relished that chastisement, to know that, in one sense, I'm important enough that Guru Maharaj interrupted everything to help me understand my position. So we should think like that too, if the devotees sometimes are a little difficult to associate with, that actually whatever difficulties are there, they're helping me get purified. And without the association of devotees, it's a fact, each and every one of us, we would be lost. Because we all have good days, we have bad days, we have times that we're enthused and times that we're struggling, times that we feel happy, times we feel distressed, times we feel Krishna's presence, times we wonder where is he? And without the devotees, we really wouldn't have that inspiration to go on so nicely. So thank you for the devotees of Radhadesh for this beautiful temple, and thank you to all the Vaishnavas for your association. So this verse, as I mentioned, is kind of, we were asked to choose verses that we like, so it really has been kind of the greatest hits of Krishna conscious philosophy, allowing us to choose verses that we like. So I was thinking on this verse, there's so many things that could be said, and it really is, as I was reading the purport, preparing, I was thinking maybe I should do one of these, and Gruta did something similar to this the other day, but maybe read one line and talk about it, because every line has so much information there, and even so many individual words, it's kind of give a reflection in such a way that you could stop and discuss individual words. But I thought I won't get through the purport if I do that. So just read the whole thing and then share some thoughts. So the first thing that entered my mind is just when we think about this Prabhupada, this is the first canto, 2nd chapter, 6th verse, very early in Prabhupada's translation work. He did not know this was going to be published. There was no guarantee this was going to be published. He's sitting where? In Delhi, in Vrindavan. He's in Vrindavan, he goes back and forth later to Delhi to help get... He didn't know it was going to get published. He had no guarantee at that point. He's just writing with no guarantee. He didn't know if it was going to be well received. It's not like Rukmini mentioned what she read the other day at the communications conference, that he didn't have a publisher lined up. He didn't know whether people were going to appreciate what he was writing, how he's explaining it, if it's going to actually work. And he definitely didn't know he was going to, maybe Krishna was revealing to him at some point in time, but at that point, is he going to get to the West? Is he going to have a chance to actually spread this message in the West? It was some 9 years later. So he's sitting alone, in one sense isolated from his later mission, and he's putting these purports together for us. So 50 some years later, maybe 60 now, from when he wrote this, we can draw benefit from. But still, he wrote in such a profound way. And I was thinking it's a little reminder to each of us. Oftentimes we find ourselves doing some service in an isolated way. You don't know, is anyone noticing? Is anyone appreciating? Is it going to make a difference? But that's not the mood of our founder Acharya. The mood that he set for us is that, and is taught by all the acharyas, it's Vaishnava philosophy, he personified this, that whatever we do, it matters. Whatever we do, Krishna appreciates, Krishna accepts, and it makes a difference, whatever we do. And sometimes material energy is very expert at making us feel like what I'm doing doesn't count, doesn't make a difference. Nobody's noticing. But we see with Srila Prabhupada, so much he was, pouring his heart into these purports. Again, not knowing if it's going to be received, not knowing if he's going to go to the West, not knowing if it's even going to be published. But still he did it for Krishna. And that potency is so much there. So such a beautiful verse in purport. So I thought just to share a few thoughts on this. So first of all, mentions the purport. Prabhupada said Sutta Goswami, he's answering the first question of the sages, which is, please, therefore, being blessed with many years, explain to us in an easily understandable way. Is that nice? Explain in an easily understandable way what you have ascertained to be the absolute and ultimate good for people in general. So I was just thinking that that in itself is just wonderful. I mean, here we are, we're devotees, almost everybody here, maybe everybody in the world. We gave up something else to take up this process of Krishna consciousness in a serious way. We gave up something else we were doing. So what is it we've taken up? We've taken up an idea. We've taken up a goal, a vision, a mission, that there actually is something that is good for everybody. That there's one wonderful thing, like it's described, the supreme dharma, occupation for all humanity, that by which everyone, for all humanity, by which everyone can become satisfied. So our teaching starts with that. There is some occupation that's beneficial for everybody. This is so different from everything else in the world at large, because the society is very much based on winners and losers. I win, you lose. And I don't want to lose, which means I don't want you to win, which means there's tension and there's strife and there's conflict. If I win, you lose. Capitalism, we heard some comments yesterday about, capitalism, and unfettered capitalism is nasty. I get an advantage and I take advantage and I keep taking advantage of my advantage and I push my advantage, and to the point that I'm making millions and you're making pennies. They go back, you look at the history of the United States, I'm most familiar with. I mean, until the era of the labor unions, the employees, there was child labor. They passed laws, you can't have a job till you're at least 14. So there's children working in these factories, producing clothes and things like that for people. Of course, we know those things are continuing today. We had a presentation, talk about it earlier in the week, and they still estimate there's something like 25 to 30 human beings who are held in slavery now, today, around the world. Some of it, of course, sex trafficking, we hear mostly about that, but also for labor, people being exploited for their labor. So capitalism is exploitative. Communism, nice thing, I was fired up about that when I was younger. It's just like, well, but the thing is, the millions of people you kill to get there, that's not so good. There's a few shortages in that process. Nationalism, so popular these days, it's on the rise everywhere, including in America. And it's like nationalism for us, not for you. Very, very divisive and very, very much in the mood of, we win, you lose. Traditionally, I get the girl, you lose the girl or the boy, right? I get famous, you don't get famous. There's a what do they say, a net sum? What's the term? The net sum. Like there's a limited amount. Like there's a pie. Zero sum game. There's a pie. There's only a certain amount of pie, and whatever you get means I get less. What kind of worldview is that? Whatever you get, I get less. So naturally, you're my ally if you help me get more. Until I realize that now you're my competitor, because we've risen to the top, and now you're my competitor, so you're also an obstacle in the way. So whether it's my country or my company, if I'm up, you're down. So material competition, it leads to a lot of pain, it leads to attacks, it leads to anxiety, and you made me my friend now, but you're my enemy tomorrow. And you look at world, just like yesterday, Nitya Gaur Sundar, you were talking about how funny it was, historically, how the French were getting support from the British. And with my American lack of European history, I was thinking, I thought you guys fought with the Germans. Well, no, before it was them, and then before it was them, and then it was them, and then it was them. Like America, right? Like we're, defeat the Japanese and then go help them rewrite the Constitution and help the country. But I thought we were enemies. But no, now we're allies because now those guys are the enemies, etc. It's just the whole history of this crazy world. One day we're friends, and the next day we're enemies. Yeah, so many examples of that. So by the nature of the material world, there's so much anxiety about it caused to this. I went to a conference last week, just as kind of a side note, called about faith and business, and it was very interesting for a lot of reasons. But one of the things they're seeing is that in big corporations now, they're trying to actually promote protection for religious freedom and religious diversity for a bunch of reasons. One or two being because if people feel their religious affiliation is appreciated by the company, I feel more at home there. And as they have this slogan, you can bring your whole self to work, which you can really, work hard for the company. And of course, it helps promote understanding between employees. But they were also saying, I was speaking with one of the winners of the Young God Award. He was saying, we know for sure it promotes innovation. Religious diversity and understanding promotes innovation, which is interesting in itself, because they were saying, because if I know I'm in a Hindu group, whatever, you're in a Muslim group, a Jewish group, we get together, celebrate each other's holidays, we feel good about each other, but also I know you're there in the strategic planning team when I need help in the engineering department, so it helps innovation. Which is like, wow, that's really good. So in other words, as a capitalist, your ultimate goal is to make money, and you've realized that it's good to promote healthy relationships between employees so you can make money. Wow, isn't that convenient? But the idea being, in this context, for them, it was all about innovation. We need to innovate. It's so important for us to innovate, because otherwise we die. That was what it kind of boiled down to. Because these were big companies, like Google was there, and Accenture, and Intuit, and American Airlines, and American Express. They're all there in this faith and business conference to talk about how we're promoting faith now. And underneath it all, which is good, it's fantastic, it's great, it's wonderful. And it promotes innovation. Because why? Because they're worried, because they might die. Because American Airlines looks around and they know what happened to Pan Am. In my country, Eastern Airlines is gone. Northwestern Airlines is gone. So they're gone because the competition. I win, you lose. So within our Krishna movement, it's actually such a profound idea here presented in this verse that we actually believe there's something that's good for everyone. And we have to be careful as devotees, because we also tend to narrow the everyone. You hear this amongst devotees. You hear this a lot. But it's not, Krishna consciousness is not just good for Vaishnavas. It's not just good for Hindus. It's not just good for South Asians. It's not just good for Europeans. It's not just good for men. It's not just, it's good for everyone. And we should remember that Lord Chaitanya specifically is this messenger described in the scripture. He broke open the storehouse of love of God. He did not determine who was a fit, who was an unfit candidate. But we have a tendency to still get in this mindset, oh, you're fit, you're not fit. You're coming to Krishna consciousness the way I came to Krishna consciousness. Just like I was thinking this morning, I was looking around the temple room, we're all chanting. I was thinking, how is it possible? There's so many different houses of worship of different varieties and traditions, and you could even say, if you want, levels of understanding. How could someone that's actually serious on the path of Krishna consciousness be uncomfortable or critical or even demeaning of someone else who's following a different language, a different culture, a different tradition, a different methodology that's also helping them become connected to God? How's it possible? If we're giving our lives to help to ourselves trying to connect with God, how can we criticize or demean anyone else on any other path and any other legitimate religious practice, of which there's many? It doesn't make sense. We're not very serious or sincere or knowledgeable about what we're doing then. Because if we're understanding we're followers of Lord Chaitanya, who came to elevate everybody, and here's someone else who's following some other path that's helping them become more pious, helping them understand God a little bit, we should deeply value that. So I can remember as a student, in college, I didn't finish, but I was there for some time. But I can remember being a little bit kind of bewildered, because there'd be like a meeting in those days. The big cause is like, black liberation. There'd be like a meeting to help African American students, like, wow, I need to go to that. But then Jai Shisha Radha Gopinath. But then there was like an opportunity, you need to get involved to help the farm workers. Cesar Chavez, some of you may remember that name. Cesar Chavez was helping to unionize and mobilize the farm workers. Okay, got to help that. But then we need to, what about the whales? The whales are being exploited. Oh, that's not good. What about the environment? The environment is being, what about women? Women are being exploited. It was like, wow, where am I going to put my energy? I want to try to help the world get better. And then you go to meeting about the whatever, liberating this or that, and the men in the room that are there to try to liberate and help the people are, but aren't you kind of trying to exploit the women at the same time? And the people that are like, we see, you're trying to like help the animals, but then what about the unborn babies? That's a real contrast when you go to some of the animal rights conferences and they're not necessarily concerned about unborn human beings. And when you go to the conference about unborn human beings, sit down and celebrate the progress with a good juicy red steak. And you think, whoa, something's really missing here. But Srila Prabhupada's explained to us, this verse is explaining to us that actually in Krishna consciousness we can, as he explained, water the root. That the whole plant is helped if we water the root. So that's what's being offered here. It's really quite profound. If we back up a little bit and think about it, that when we come to the temple, when we chant Hare Krishna, when we worship the deities, we distribute a book, we do so on the faith, on the belief, on some level of experience, that by this one act of the supreme dharma of bhakti, of connecting with Krishna, it's actually helpful for everyone in every situation, in every context. And not everyone can necessarily say that, and everything we do up till now was not of that level. So that's one point. Second point, I'll make three. Second point is described here, talking about Nivritti Marg and Pavritti Marg, that in one sense, maybe this could come earlier, but that the Shastra is explaining that the path that generally most people in the world, generally most of the time are pursuing, is inferior. It doesn't actually satisfy people. And the Shastra gives such wonderful examples that materialistic life, we've all heard these, is like licking the bottle of honey. If you think about it, well, that's not very satisfying. And it's described that I can't remember, this is from the scripture from my bhakti classes, that trying to enjoy material world is like trying to wrap your tongue with gauze and then eating a gulab jamun. I think that came from the bhakti program. I don't think that's in the scripture, but it works.
It sounds like the bhakti program.
Yeah, it sounds like the bhakti program, yeah. Of course, I'm not sure though, because as bhaktas, I don't know if we knew what a gulab jamun was. So, but it was probably from the bhakti program. And of course, Prahlad Maharaj, about chewing the chewed, which I always relate to, because I can remember as a student hoping I would get a desk that would not have all kinds of really gross stuff stuck underneath it from all the previous students who were chewing and leaving their bubble gum under the desk. So that was always kind of a gross thing. So, thoughtful person, understands that we see this. We actually see that the material world, it doesn't satisfy us. People experience that, but they're afraid to say that. Actually, they're afraid to be honest with themselves, with others, largely because they're afraid there's nothing else. They don't know if there's anything else. And therefore, devotees are asked and encouraged, we read it again this morning, right after Mangalartik, that devotees should try to go out and reach people, try to give them an opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness, because they're really afraid there's nothing else. And if you don't know there's something else, then your choices are pretty limited. And basically, like that expression, fake it until you make it. But it really just means you fake it until you die. That's what materialistic life really, and if we really look at it in its harshest sense, that's what it's about. Just Shanika was talking yesterday about going to the hospitals. We've all been in situations sometimes dealing with people that are ill or whatever. You say, "How you doing?" "I'm fine." Somebody's had a death in the family. "How you doing?" "I'm fine." "Everything okay?" "Yeah, it's fine." "I'm fine. You're fine. Everything's fine." But it's not fine. But you have to kind of fake it that it's fine. I was mentioning the Krishna Prema Rupa this morning. I was in Chicago a month and a half ago, and coming out from the airport, heading to the table, there's like a big billboard with just a picture of a man, handsome looking guy, typical model these days, just his beard was just the right length, which many used this elastic shaver that morning to get it just perfect. And a nice smile on his face. And there was only 2 words on the billboard. It was advertising. 2 words and then a little like 1-800 number, right? The 2 words were eternal hair. Eternal hair. Call this number, you can get eternal hair. Which is, there's so much you could say about it. It's so funny. Number 1, there's no such thing as eternal hair, right? And number 2, even if you got eternal hair, are you stupid enough to think that's going to make you happy? But apparently so, because those billboards aren't cheap. They don't give them away for free. So somebody's making money from a sign that says eternal hair, and people going, oh, I need that product. Isn't it? So that's described as the inferior path. There's an expression, we'll probably use the expression cheaters and cheated. And sometimes, maybe this is one of the, Shonika always has these great common wisdoms, but we've heard this expression, girls wear makeup, boys say I love you. It's all lying, and it's all to take advantage. Girls wear makeup because they're not as pretty as they want you to think they are, and boys say I love you, they don't really love you. Why are the girls wearing the makeup, the boys are saying I love you? Because I'm lacking something in my life. I'm pretending, but I want to exploit you. It's a win-lose situation. I had an experience, I maybe told the story here before, I was at the Indian Embassy in Washington, D.C. a few years ago. Maybe it was the British Embassy, a lot of young Indian people, and I was sitting talking with a young man standing, and there was 2, maybe even 3 young, very attractive women. Women were attractive, he was attractive, and you could just feel the whole energy, between them. It was like showing off to each other. And I was there wearing a dhoti, and they were kind of like a little bit respectful, but a little bit disrespectful, kind of making fun of me a little bit, though I was part of the conversation. What are you doing? And really, you don't do this, you don't do that, and blah, 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 blah. And then the girls left. They walked away. And he turned to me. He said, you want to know the truth? He was, in this kind of a mood, showing off. He said, you want to know the truth? I said, sure. He said, I'm miserable. Yeah. And just a moment before, he was like the embodiment of confidence, success, attractiveness, hanging around with me. I've got money, I'm this, I'm so self-assured, and obviously in the mood of attracting the young women because he's thinking they'll make him happy. They're thinking he can make him happy, but the fact is inside they're not. So second point, just that materialistic life is not worth pursuing, as we know. And the last point, maybe the most important one, and again, so much could be said here, just a few thoughts, but that unmotivated and uninterrupted devotion or love is such a beautiful instruction. And a lot of people would maybe respond to that like, well, yeah, that sounds good. It's very poetic. Unmotivated and uninterrupted. Our devotion should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. It sounds great. And in the world around us, people are pursuing that. But we live in a place, the movie always ends. The book always ends. I read an article a few years ago that always sticks in my mind. It was a lengthy article, and it was about a very famous male actor, director who'd recently died, and a very famous woman actress who'd recently died. And they kind of talked about how he'd become so famous, and how she'd become so famous, and she was so beautiful, and he was so well known. But then she became an alcoholic, and he divorced 5 times, and this and that, and the whole like up and down of their life. And at the end, their lives were, she died in poverty, and he died as a, drug addicted. So it was just one of those things, like it was, and I finished thinking, you get getting close to the article, and you're like at the last paragraph, and I'm just thinking, wow, I really got to become serious about Krishna consciousness. I just got to become serious. But the author's summary was, what a roller coaster they've been through, but what a ride it must have been. And I was thinking, you idiot. You know, you study these two famous people. Everybody wants to become beautiful like her. Everybody wants to become rich and famous and influential like him. And look what it got them. You know, they look where they ended up. Why don't you look for something else? So the Bhagavatam is encouraging us to look for something else, and it's telling us. Bhagavatam's telling us, Sutta Goswami's telling us, Prabhupada's telling us, Krishna's telling us that no, these things of this materialistic world, the pavriti, positive path of sensual enjoyment, so-called positive, it's not actually satisfying. But the reality is, if we seek unmotivated, uninterrupted devotion to Krishna, then actually this will satisfy us, and that this is the reality. And this is actually attainable. And not only that, it's our birthright, it's actually natural. And that Krishna's our friend. And that he wants to help us come there. He wants to help us get to that platform. We have so much help that's there by the Lord's arrangement. If we look around, we think, is it possible? There's so much help. We have our Diksha Guru, we have so many Siksha Gurus, we have the Shastra, we have the deities, our founder Chari, we have Prasadam, Kirtan to inspire us, the holy name is there. The black lady at the hospital who comes up regularly, we've all met, or the airport, the black lady in the airport that comes up, as we heard, we've all met people like that at different places. As it was described, you know, Krishna puts people in our lives. But as is described in this verse, also, you know, we can't fake it. Our devotion has to become unmotivated and uninterrupted to be completely satisfied. So we have to try to get there. And it's a little difficult as devotees because I think as Garuda gave class the other day that stuff comes up, right? You talked about that. Stuff comes up. And that's good. You described it. You know, that's good. An analogy I always heard for years. Haribo Shonika, thanks for being with us. He's leaving now for the airport. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai. Oxford Center for Hindu Studies, Ki Jai. Founding Director of ISKCON Communications Europe, Ki Jai. Krishna Ki Jai. Yes. So this is giving us some guidance. So the example you used to hear again, Bhakti class possibly, that when you first start to clean the room, you know, you go and you're going to clean the house for a party and it doesn't look so bad, and then you pull the couch out from the wall and then you do this and then you realize, oh my gosh, this place is really dirty. So Krishna consciousness is a little bit like that. As we go on, you find more and more subtle layers that need to be cleaned. And that's a big reason we need devotees association, because sometimes you see the new layer of dirt, and you think, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can get through this next layer. I don't know if I have the strength to get through this next layer. I never realized there was that much dirt in the closet. I get the whole rest of the room clean, but then I realize, oh, there's a closet. I have to look, and you're like, you know, you want to close the door again. But with devotee association, we get the enthusiasm to continue on. And as described here, our goal is unmotivated and uninterrupted. And that in itself is just that concept, again, going back to this idea, the concept is just so beautiful, so wonderful. I remember when I was first becoming serious about spiritual life, I had a brother-in-law in Detroit where I lived, and he was kind of inquiring because I had a little bit of a relationship with him and I could speak with him honestly. And I remember telling him about, I'm looking for that thing where it's like people don't exploit one another and where people actually care for one another. And he honestly said to me, but that's not real. You know, like you're just some crazy 60s, 70s young person who's just got you're aspiring for something that's not real. The world's not like that. And I just remember thinking, yeah, but that's your choice and I don't want to live in your world. You know, and if that's the only world, frankly, I don't want to live in that world. I don't want to, and that's sad because a lot of people, Rukmini told that story the other day. They see no hope. They take their lives. They become alcoholics. They become drug addicts. You know, people take shelter of something that just leads them into kind of further ignorance. But as devotees, we're so fortunate because we know if I just continue with the process of cleaning my heart, one day I will come to this point of unmotivated and uninterrupted service. And that will completely satisfy us. And sometimes if we don't feel completely satisfied, we should ask ourselves, well, is my service uninterrupted and unmotivated? Well, not yet. Okay, we'll keep going. But as we make progress, we see. And we know just that Krishna will help us. This is what's so beautiful. And we need to ask for help. That's such an important part of our process. And Prabhupada's given us the chanting, which he described as like a child calling for its mother. So that in itself is just, again, another wonderful instruction. Just to summarize, maybe there's some questions. I wanted to talk about this one point. It's my favorite expression, I think, in the whole Bhagavatam, that devotional service to the Lord, becoming the Lord's servant. The relationship, quote, is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. Completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relationship, a relation of the servant and the served, is the most congenial form of intimacy. What a wonderful thing to aspire for. Most congenial form of intimacy. So, again, just to summarize, 3 simple points that this experience and the teaching of awakening love of God, love of Krishna, devotional service is actually the best thing for everybody. Nobody's left behind. They had this expression in America a few years ago. They're trying to fix the educational system. Their goal was nobody left behind. But they canned it a few years later because they realized it was leaving too many people behind. So then they came up with a new idea. So this actually doesn't leave anybody behind. But to be part of that, we have to rise above sectarianism ourselves to actually experience it. And the second point, that attraction to this material world is just, whatever enjoyment is there, it's just inferior. And we all had some experience of that, or we get that experience on a regular basis. And the Shastra is reaffirming what we know. Because if we're going to be unmotivated and uninterrupted in our service, that means we don't look back. And as long as we're looking back, it means we're still thinking there's some shelter, some gratification, some satisfaction in this material world. And that's why it's hard in our not so advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, because we're pulled toward Krishna, but then we're pulled back. And we've all seen in our community sometimes a person will come to the temple and get really enthusiastic for like a week or a month or a year or 2, and then you don't see them for a week or a month or a year or 2. And then they come back looking a little wiser, a little more burnt out, a little more serious. And you say, what happened to you? Well, I went to check out the other side for a while, and it still doesn't satisfy me. And then they come back. So we're kind of doing that on a more subtle level all the time. But here, Sutta Goswami is telling us, and Prabhupada's expanding, if to the extent that we do, and we all do, we want to taste Krishna consciousness, we need to aspire to this unmotivated and uninterrupted service. And we can get there only by Krishna's grace. He wants to help us. He's our best friend, and we have to become more and more convinced that things of this world, they don't satisfy us. And I was thinking this morning, I want to go back and study that verse about lust, the sitting places of lust. Krishna tells Arjuna what? It's in the senses, the mind, and does he say the intelligence? Yeah. And I was kind of experiencing like, my eyes are lusty sometimes, most of the time, but then it's not just my eyes, it's in my mind. But then it's not just in my mind, sometimes it's in my intelligence. I was thinking, I'm finished.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Thank you, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Unfortunately, it's way too obvious. But, I mean, how do we get free from that? You know, and there's that wonderful exchange Prabhupada in 26th Avenue, maybe it was San Francisco, one of the first 2 temples, and this man was coming and saying, how do I deal with my mind? He asked the question at the end of Prabhupada's lecture. Prabhupada said, you chant Hare Krishna. And then he repeated, he said, but how do I deal with my mind? And Prabhupada said, just chant Hare Krishna, chant the Hare Krishna. He said, no, how do I deal with my mind? Prabhupada said, I have no other medicine. I have no other medicine. So that's the medicine given to us. Chanting Krishna's name, let's all do it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if we take shelter of Krishna's name, will be successful. And so this third point, that the highest goal really is unmotivated and uninterrupted love for Krishna. We can get there by the Lord's grace. He wants to take us there. It was so nice. Many of us saw the movie the other evening. The first launched. Mahaprabhu was such a, can I mention? He raised his eyebrows like, don't say. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's being recorded, but the fact that it's coming out a couple months, but we got this special opportunity to view that movie, and to see how Prahlad Maharaj, his desire was so intense, but at every step Krishna was there, every step. That's the other thing, to just end with this. It's so beautiful in Krishna consciousness, this idea, why am I suffering? Because I chose to. How do I get out? When I choose to. Is Krishna going to help me? Yes, when we want him to. Is Krishna like hiding himself? Yes, because we want him to. Will Krishna reveal himself? Yes, when I want him to. Is Krishna trying to help me no matter what? Yes, more than we can even imagine. Why am I still here? Just because of my desire. How do I purify my desire? By just taking advantage of the mercy that Krishna gives us. Can I get out? You're destined to get out. It's our natural position. It's not actually getting out. It's just reawakening what's already there. It's quite profound. I studied a little philosophy before I became a devotee. I mean, ain't nobody's got what we've got. You know, and as far as the ideal, it's unbelievably beautiful and profound. What's your goal? You know, what's your movement all about? Uninterrupted and unmotivated love. That's our goal. Really, for who? Everybody. Well, how do you get there? It's open to everybody. How do you do it? It's like a very simple process. Just, eat this food for starters. I don't believe in it. That's okay. Eat this food anyway. Like, wow. Like, it's amazing. It's quite phenomenal. So any questions or comments? We'll stop there. Thank you very much. One ecto. Start with Radhadesh Prabhu. No, you first. You can warm me up before he gets.
I need a warm up.
Yes, in this verse, to me, called my attention the two words that define the pure devotional service, Ahaituki and Pratihata. But I think that it's easy, sometimes it's easy to think in to do a service like this when you are offering it to Adokshaya, to Krishna, the Supreme Lord, in order that the Atma become suprasidati, not just prasidati, it's suprasidati, more than satisfied. But at the same time, I think it's possible to practice such a devotional service with this characteristic if you don't have a Haituki and a Pratihata to serve devotees. Because if you think, you see, Adokshaya is the Supreme Lord, okay, I try to be my service, or to do my service in this kind of mood. But it's possible if you don't have enough Ahaituki and Apratihata with the devotees to achieve this position of
Is it
pure
possible
devotional
to awaken
service.
it with Krishna if we don't have that relationship with devotees?
I am thinking about how to develop Ahaituki and Apratihata service to the devotees first.
Yeah.
It's my meditation sometimes. I don't know if you have something to say about it.
Well, I mean, what comes to my mind is Krishna says, those who say they're my devotees are not my devotees. Only those who say they're devotee are my devotee. Who are devotees are my devotee. I mean, I don't know if our service can be, somebody else can comment, but I think if we're going to have unmotivated, uninterrupted service to the Lord, it's going to come along at the same time as I think they're going to go at the same time. It's not like you do one, you do the other. Or if we awaken that some higher level of devotion to Krishna, we can't do that in a void. It's got to be an association of devotees. So I think it's a nice meditation. Let my service to others become. Just like last night, there was some of us, we came late for Prasadam, and Shamananda Prabhu was there by himself serving Prasadam to all the devotees, many, dozens. And then the nice couple that are here, the film producers kind of came late, and there was he was trying to have everybody leave, and because he just needed everybody. He said, "Look, I've got to clean up alone. I've got to clean the room alone, and I need everybody to leave soon." And he was a little like flustered by the whole thing, whatever. You know, he was on edge, been working on. And then these two other devotees came and said, "Prabhu, is there anything for them?" And he walked out the door into the rain, down at, I got the kitchens downstairs, and somehow found more prasadam, came back up. And I was thinking, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I would have done that. I think I would have said, "Sorry, there's nothing left, go home and cook." You know, which is what they offered to do because they were being so gracious. But he did that. I was thinking, gosh, let my service become so uninterrupted and unmotivated, because there was no benefit for him. This meant he's going to be up another extra 10 minutes later. It was just, you know, which is why we got to be with devotees, so we can learn from others. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes. 3 things. One is you completely misread the billboard.
The billboard, okay.
There is eternal hair.
Okay.
His
True.
name is Keshava.
Keshava,
Right,
yeah.
one with beautiful hair. And you can see.
I was looking at it
beautiful-
through my mundane eyes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no eternal hair
There's
in this world
yeah.
separate from Keshava. Yeah, thank you.
Exactly. Okay.
Good.
Okay, so that's one.
Okay, one
2,
correction. 2
yeah.
more.
No, not corrections, just thoughts.
Okay.
2, how long have I been hearing these terms pravritti marg and nivritti marg? I mean, forever, right? But this morning I've realized what the words themselves mean. The pravritti marg means the turnings of consciousness outwardly, whereas nivritti marg, hello? Okay, sounds so strange. Nivritti marg means the turnings of consciousness internally. Deeply, deeply. So that our path really is about going deep within our own hearts. And that's my third point. The Gita says you stop the mind from within the heart. And even though we have outward meditations, exquisite outward meditations, that's all to stimulate the inner Radha Gopinath within our hearts. So we've got it all covered. We've got pravritti and nivritti marg covered. So that's our beautiful process, I think. So anyway, just some thoughts. Yeah.
It's a beautiful process. Any ladies? Any questions? Yes. You want to hand the microphone?
It's going.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You stressed so many wonderful points. In regard this win-lose logic or mentality idea, you also expressed that in our Krishna consciousness tradition movement, there is something for everybody to be happy. So whether you understand it in a way that this is win-win actually, logic, and when we rise above, because we know that we also have this win-lose mentality when we judge other traditions, maybe even from eating meat, doing different things, which is according their tradition, like beneficial to do. So having all this in mind, like also in inside and outside obstacles and win-lose mentality that we have in our movement, so what do you see as a win-win mentality that is actually beneficial for everybody? You said you already expressed.
Well, the ideal is here, but you make a really good point. It doesn't mean we're actually living on that platform or acting on that platform. So we have to be on guard all the time to make sure that we are. Again, I was thinking this morning, and it was reminded by your question. I remember being a young devotee in the Denver airport distributing books, and a priest came through with a tennis racket under his arm. And as I recalled, a couple devotees, he was friendly, Catholic priest, a couple devotees started talking to him and this and that. And I was just younger, so I was standing back, and I don't remember all of it, but it ended up devotees criticizing him because he was probably after 5 years or 10 years going home to visit his parents and take a break for 10 days with his tennis racket. And they were maybe even using this verse, real devotion is uninterrupted and unmotivated. How can you possibly take a vacation? And As I recall, he was kind of, it wasn't like he was, we've all met the people that are aggressive and a little obnoxious and you maybe slip into, he was like, and he went away and I was just, again, watching, I probably did the same thing with others, but I felt really bad. You know, here's a person, he's a priest, he's practicing, he's celibacy, he's practicing devotion, he's given up a career or other things he could be. And we're criticizing because he got it. And a couple of years later, I was thinking, you know, the priest is probably still a priest, and God bless him, but those Prabhus who were selling books, where are they? I don't know. Are they still in the movement? Probably not. Maybe not. Some of them are not. So who are we to criticize this person? And you know, when you do, we do this communications conference, so many of us, we do, you know, we interact with people on so many different levels, and sometimes it's really easy to point out the faults of others. It's a lot easier than pointing out the faults in my own heart. And I mean, just an example, I mean, sometimes we get really blocked, you know, like, and sometimes I wonder, how can these people seem so nice, and but they're eating meat, you know, they're killing animals. But then, okay, it's a big discussion in some places within ISKCON, but most of us drink milk. Most of the milk we drink is not from protected cows, so those cows are going to be slaughtered. Now, we've got all our arguments. Well, the milk's offered to Christians, purified this and that. I'm like vegan at home, but not outside, so I'm one of those people too, is buying milk. But the point is my daily life so perfect that there's no negative impacts of what I do to the point I have the right to criticize others and to think that I'm, you know, more sincere, more pure-hearted than they are? I don't, you know, that's not the mood. You know, it doesn't mean we don't point out these things. And you know, we know it's there's within our communities, I mean, you know, part of my job is problem solving, as many of us have that. And there's too many times people leave our movement because they've been mistreated.
Yeah.
Too many times. Painfully so. And so we speak about all these things as an ideal, and we should, because it inspires us. And at the same time, we have to have that check and balance to see how good of a job are we doing towards manifesting that. And part of that means we have to have a forgiving spirit in our own heart, because we're all going to step on each other's toes sometimes. We're all going to let each other down. If we think otherwise, we're fools, because we're still in the material world and people are not always going to be so perfect. And at the same time, we have to really, 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 really strive to create that mood in our communities as best we possibly can. And it's not easy. And you know, we talk about it in so many leadership things. Like we have to be transparent. You know, leaders especially have to be transparent, have to be held to high standards of integrity as best we can. We all fall short. And transparency, accountability, and integrity. We have to make sure those things are there. And it's not always the culture, because we're all coming from these different backgrounds. You know, if you come from a corporate background, it's all about make profits and cover your own derriere, to use the French, is that right? French term? Backside, you got to cover your, right? That's the corporate culture. Is, you know, anyway, you don't have to get into it. Yeah, we're going to quit in 2 minutes. 9 o'clock, right? 9 o'clock. We're going to quit at 9 o'clock.
4 minutes to 9.
I'm going to use my power here. We're going to quit at 9 o'clock. Yeah, Guru, is that okay?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like you said, that win-win solution is our ideal, and we actually, this is not mentality.
It's not, yeah, it's not just the ideal, it's the reality.
Yes,
It's the reality we're trying to achieve.
And ideal and philosophy
Yeah,
behind win-win, not
Yeah.
win-lose.
yeah. Yes, and it's possible according to this verse. Anybody else? Guru has hand up. One last question, comment. Can we go to Lilith? Yeah. And we are going to quit at 9. That's what they've been telling everybody every day. I'm just following the rules. Yes.
Well, you talk about that our dealings as persons is not always ideal. That made me think of, there's a Prabhupada in a letter talked to someone about utopia. Someone wrote to Prabhupada utopia, and Prabhupada talks about how utopia is impersonalism. And we should always expect, when we're dealing with persons, that things will not be utopia. Maybe can you comment on something like that?
As you asked that, I'm only thinking, yeah, I've definitely experienced that. My first traveling Sankirtan trip, I can still see the party leader in the front driver's seat, and I'm looking at him in the rearview mirror, and he's yelling at me very loudly and very aggressively about some very insignificant thing. And then he looks at me in the rearview mirror and he says, Bhakta Jeff, I can tell that disturbed you, but you should know the next 5 weeks we're together, my service is to purify you. That was my first experience on traveling Sankirtan. And I was thinking, Krishna, I'm going to need your help on this one. So yeah, we've all got our baggage, and we have to learn to live with each other. But I mean, all these great souls with their baggage and their imperfections, they're dear to Krishna. You know, I'll end with this. I think it's a letter Prabhupada wrote back to somebody. You know, regarding your difficulties with such and such a devotee or such and such a situation, Prabhupada wrote, please try to tolerate them the same way I tolerate you. Which is so wonderful, you know. That keeps me going on. You know? Okay? So we'll end there. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah. Very cool. Very true too.